I know.
Was
you take credit for it.
Vince Russo was a TV guy who understood how to write for television. Okay. Now you take a guy that could write for television, that could write soap operas and things of that nature, and what do you have? You know, you have a guy that that can write for great TV. Now, did he throw a bunch of junk against the wall and some of it stuck? Sure he did. But you know what? There was other guys there. There was Bruce Pritchard. There was Jim Cornette. There was, Vince. There was other guys that were there. I will never put Kevin Dunn in that story because I think Kevin Dunn, I think horribly of him. But Vince Russo got a bad rep because Vince wasn't, how do I put this? Vince wasn't happy being a writer. Vince wanted to be on TV, and that was the problem. When he went to WCW, he stopped wanting to be just a writer. He wanted to be a personality. He wanted to be a star of the show, okay? If he would have stayed in the back, okay, keep writing, and that'll hopefully, that'll be enough. But when he started to put himself in position to be a part of the show itself, that's when it started to go south. And, what he did to certain guys, I mean, look at some of the stupid gimmicks that he came up with. I mean, you took a guy like Mike Awesome, who was amazing in Japan. He was ECW heavyweight champion, a guy who was legit 6'8", 6'7", something like that. Great build. And what do you... Yes, amazing talent. And what did you do with him? You made him the fat chick Thriller or that 70s guy. I mean, really, that's the best you could do with him? I mean, you took Dustin Rhodes and you put him in a Uncle Fester outfit and you called him Seven? Really? That he was going to come right there, it was a take on the 7 deadly sins? See, this is the problem is when they were doing those characters, it was one thing for WWE to do those characters, but in the Attitude Era, when Vince Russo, when that all switched over, and you didn't see the barbers and the race car drivers and the garbage men, when that kind of went by the wayside, and they started to use guys like Angle, Stone Cold, The Rock, when they started letting guys just be wrestlers, okay, that's when people started to believe that pro wrestling could be real because they never knew, like, did Stone Cold really hate Vince? Did Vince really hate Stone Cold? That was the allure to it. But then WCW thought, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to slap these stupid gimmicks on guys, and we're going to try to do what the WWE did years ago. And the problem is you insulted the fans' intelligence. Okay, we're already, as wrestlers, we're trying to get you, the fans, to put your disbelief on hold for a few minutes or a few hours and believe that pro wrestling is real, okay? What's even stupider is to say, okay, we're going to take a guy like Mike Awesome and we're going to put him in a tie-dye shirt and bell-bottom pants and we're going to call him that 70s guy. Okay, do you think he's walking around as that 70s guy, like on the street? No, that's stupid. You're insulting the fans' intelligence by doing that. Now, what was Stone Cold? Stone Cold was that guy that worked in the factory that drank beer and came home and watched TV and beat up the neighbor because he was playing his music too loud. That was Stone Cold. Shawn Michaels was a ladies' man who was, the sexy boy gimmick was legit. Kurt Angle was the Olympic athlete that now is a pro wrestler and it lives by, drinking milk and eating cookies and going to bed. The Rock did his thing, Triple H and DX did their thing and made fun of, like, corporate America. Like, these were all believable characters, okay? WCW started putting guys, Vince started writing in guys that, like, just stupid characters, stupid ideas, and you just insulted the fans' intelligence, and they spoke out, which is why the ratings dropped off like they did. Sorry to go on a tangent like that, Evan.
No, that's perfectly fine. And, people debate why, WCW failed miserably. I think you gave it a great reason. That's kind of why I got turned off by WCW, because it was, as you put it, just stupid. They tried to recreate, I think, the Austin, this Vince McMahon hatred angle a little bit with the Ric Flair and, Russo and David Flair and shaving Flair's head and all that stuff. I think they tried it, but I think it was never going to work. and a lot of it was because they insulted the fan base over and over and over again. So I think he nailed it right on the head. And I know one of the things Russo tried to, he has talked about in the past, I know people have tried, who defended him have talked about in the past, that Turner, or AOL I should say, a lot of his ideas, they were shutting down. So he basically just threw his hands up and said, okay, fine, this is what I'm going to do. Is there any, feel any truth to that, or is that just kind of people trying to defend them?
First of all, when AOL bought, or not AOL, when they sold, when Turner sold, okay, who did they sell to? AOL, right?
AOL, yeah. AOL Time Warner merger, which
AOL didn't want pro wrestling. Yeah, AOL did not want pro wrestling. They wanted those time slots that they had. They wanted those time slots for sitcoms and for sports and for things. They didn't believe that wrestling was a valuable asset. So I've heard conflicting stories. I heard that they said, okay, there can be wrestling, but it's going to be on at 2 in the morning on like Friday nights or Saturday mornings. Okay? Well, obviously, the wrestling fan is not going to tune in, and this is before the DVR days and stuff, so, you're not going to tune into pro wrestling at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning, right? So
no.
Was it doomed from the start? Yeah, probably. But if those ratings would have been strong, if those ratings would have been 4s and 5s and 6s, do you think that they still would have felt that way? Maybe not. Maybe they would have given it a chance. But when they were hitting 2s and 1s, 1.9s and 1.5s and, 3s at best, no, you're not going to keep that product up.
No, definitely not. So now this is my actual final question. So,
okay.
The whole, because you're saying right now you're kind of going back on the network watching the old 96 Nitro. So, back in the Monday Night Wars, I was more team WCW at the time because Sting was, I love Sting. I just was a huge fan of Sting. So were you more of during the Nitro Raw War, were you more of a Raw guy or a Nitro guy?
Okay, so I love tuning into Raw because I love some of the characters that were on there. I loved watching, The Rock. I love Ken Shamrock. I love that type of stuff. But you never knew who was going to show up on WCW. Remember that? You never knew who was going to join the NWO next. Who's going to show up? All of a sudden, you'd be watching like the preliminary matches.
Yeah, Rick Rude showed up both shows in one night.
Both. And then, you'd watch it, and you'd be like, you'd be sitting there watching, and all of a sudden it'd be like a random match, and it'd be Greg Valentine would show up against somebody, or Marty Jannetty would show up to wrestle Raven. I'm like, oh my God, it's Marty Jannetty. I love that,
Yeah, I definitely loved it too, and it seemed like, as you mentioned before, WCW is more about the wrestling, the stuff in the ring, while WWE was more about the gimmicks. But yeah, I did love The Rock. I did like Austin, those guys. But I don't know, I just, for your, kind of what you said about WCW, I liked it for that reason too. Just you never knew who was going to show up. So, I guess before we go, if you just want to share with the listeners once again about your endeavors coming up, the show coming up towards the end of this month, the show in May, and then your store a little bit, and then just kind of mention that again.
Yeah, we have so January 28th at the Brat Stop, we have a SSW Prime, which is kind of like our farm system. It's like our NXT. A lot of young talent hungry to be on our main roster at SSW Entertainment. And they'll have a show at 5 p.m. on the 28th, which is January 28th at 5 p.m. And then on May 27th, that's Sunday night at 7 p.m., Memorial Day weekend, we will have our huge SSW Entertainment 15-year anniversary show featuring Kevin Thorne from the WWE fame and also WWE's favorite wrestler, Hornswoggle. And they will both be on the main show with us at 7 p.m. You're going to get 6 big matches that night. There's going to be the SSW title defended. You're going to see superstars from the Midwest, some of the most recognizable names in independent wrestling. And it's a family-friendly show. Bring your family out. Tell them you heard it at the ticket booth. Tell them that you heard this advertisement on this podcast, and I will actually give you free admission. I will give you free admission by saying you heard it on this podcast.
Yeah, and the podcast is the Evan Wit Show, and I do want to, thank you, Ryan, for coming on the show and spending your Friday evening with me. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope my questions weren't too. I don't want to call them, dumb questions, but I hope some of them weren't too dumb.
No. I love answering any types of questions, and actually, I've done a lot of podcasts, and you kept it real, and I appreciate that. And yeah, I love being asked by. Sometimes I'm kind of a jaded Jim Cornette type guy who still stuck in the 80s and the early 90s, and still want to see guys that look like wrestlers and that are bigger than the fans. And some people say that my wrestling is all done, but you know what? It's my opinions, and I appreciate you listening to me. And with all your listener support and all the people who listen to your podcast, I think our wrestling shows are going to be an even bigger success than they are. So I hope everybody comes out to the shows, and I hope everyone tunes into the Evan Wit podcast, because this is the place to be if you want to talk about pro wrestling.
Yeah, and once again, thank you very much for coming on. And that was Ryan Kross joining me this evening. Thank you for listening to the show, and I will be talking some NFL on the next show. Probably talk some Green Bay Packers and some of their off-season moves I feel they need to make if they want to even think about sniffing the playoffs, let alone the Super Bowl, which I know it's easy to say with Aaron Rodgers, you're guaranteed the playoffs, but you look at the NFC, you never truly know. But, with that, I want to thank you all for listening, and I will get back to you later and hopefully bring Ryan back on as a guest on the show. So with that, you're listening to the Evan Wit Show, and talk to you later.